All right, so in this next lesson, we're going to go through another opportunity, and this one we're going to look at something, a, potentially a common fun activity to do with allowance. And so this one we have the opportunity to look at sort of four different allowances. So Matthew has a dilemma. So he normally gets $2 a week for his allowance, but his family has given him a proposed change for the next 12 weeks, and he gets to pick one of the following. So Plan A is to continue to do $2 a week. Plan B is to receive 1 cent for the first week, 2 cents for the second week, 4 cents for the third week, so on. So essentially doubling it for the next 12 weeks. Number three, or Plan C, is to use a spinner, and which is sort of based on this one here, that will determine his allowance. So we've got 50 cents, 50 cents, 50 cents, or $5. And then the last one, Plan D, is to have a coin and flip a coin to determine the allowance. So heads, he would get no allowance, and tails, he would get $7.50. And so, I thought that coding this would be an interesting way to sort of look at these over 12 weeks and try to determine that. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop back over here onto our platform, and we're going to create a new Python 3 file. All right. So in that first week, so in that first week, well, one thing that's nice to do is to be able to keep track of our weeks. And so what we're going to do is we're going to keep track of our weeks. And so that way we can use it in all four of the scenarios. And we'll try to code all four of the scenarios as we go through our next little bit. So first of all, we can add just a little comment here. So again, the number sign will add a comment, and we can write in plain English after that. So we got Plan A. So we have our weekly allowance. So I'm just going to call that allow A. So again, these are variables that we're putting out. And all we have to do is just sort of name the variable, equal one equal sign, and then the number that we're going to have. And then we're going to have our start value of what we're going to have at the very beginning. So we're going to have 0. So after 0 weeks, or right at the very beginning, we're going to have 0, and then we're going to keep adding $2 every time. And so our total for the total number of weeks is the number of that we have at the very beginning, and the number of weeks times the allowance we have. And so to check this, we would, if we just do the quick math in our head, we're going to get $2 a week at 12 weeks. We should have 24 pop out. Oh, we need to make sure that we print this out. So we're going to say total A, and then we print that out, and we have 24. So we can say, even here we can add a Plan A. And then, there we go. So Plan A is 24. Let's put a colon in here just to make it nice. Great. Okay. So now we can work on Plan B. So Plan B, again, if we hop back over here, just to remind ourselves, so we receive 1 cent for the first week, and then 2 cents, and then 4 cents, and then, so it keeps doubling every week. So there's a couple things we need to do. We're going to start off with our total amount is being 0. So again, we have our total at 0, and then we're going to keep adding every week's allowance to that. We know that our first week's allowance is going to be 1 cent. So we're treating these as dollars. And we know that we need to, number one, double it every time. So double every week and add to the total. And so the way that we're going to do that is we're actually going to use a loop for this. All right. So we're going to say a loop for in range weeks. And so what this means is, so we're going to in range weeks. So range is referring to the number here. So weeks, and we already talked about it up here, is we have 12 weeks in total. And so we're essentially counting from 0 to 12 in this case, and or 1 to 12, sorry. And then we put that colon, and then we start off with our total B is equal to our allowance of that week plus what we had before. And one thing that is nice to do, and I'm going to write this here. So we're going to print what our allowance is and the week number. And these are just some techniques to help us with keeping track of things. And so we know that we first add the, sort of week one, we have week one allowance. We add it on to the total. And then here is where we're going to double it. So we're going to multiply by 2. And then as we go through, it will continue to add. All right. And so if I go ahead and if I run this one now, you'll see, allow. Doesn't make sense. We need it to be allow B. So I'll run that again. So you can see here now we've got all of so these are the allowances of every, and you'll see as it goes up 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. So these keep doubling, which is great. And now we want to make sure that our total B is also being kept track of. And well, it is, and so we can, if we wanted to, just add it in here, run this, and now we will see that the total is that. That looks great. So that's for for plan B. Now we can go ahead and code for plan C. So again, plan C, we're going to have this sort of spinner. So we're not going to actually have a physical spinner, but we can sort of use a digital spinner. And the way we can do this is we can sort of have a list of these 4 options and then randomly pick from those 4 options. So we're going to start off by having, well, actually just before this, I want to make sure that I save this. So we're going to save as, and this one is called Risky Allowance. Should have done that at the beginning. Sorry about that. So we're going to start off with our spinner. And we're going to have our list of things. So 0.5, 0.5, comma, 0.5, comma, 5.0. So again, we've got 1, 2, 3 50 cents and one $5. Awesome. Also going to start off with our total for plan C as being 0. That's great. And then we're going to use the same sort of technique here, but instead of doubling it like we did on this, so this one was the double allowance. We're going to use a for loop, so for x in range weeks. We're going to use, so we're going to pick something out of this list. or it's actually an array of options. Okay, and actually that's going to be our allowance. So we're going to have that allowance for C. So we're going to use something called choice for that spinner. Now, when we use choice, we actually have to use another what's called an. So all of the things that we've been using here are pre-coded, or Python has that ability to use. But something like some of the more advanced math functions or plotting or something like that, you'll have to import it. And so that import, so from random import choice, what this means is there's sort of some additional libraries or additional information that we have to bring into this. And so this is sort of the choice chapter, let's say, from the random book, if just to put it easily. All right. So now that we are doing that, one thing that we can do is, well, it's always nice to check things to make sure it's working out. Oh, I forgot to output my final total B. And then this one, I'm just going to comment this out just because we don't need it right away. Now that we are finished with Plan B, we can comment that out, but we'll finish our, and just to make things nice and clean, we can use that, and we'll say Plan B. Okay, so allowance C, we're going to go and grab it, and then what we need to do is we need to add it to our total. So we've got total C is equal to allowance C, so whatever was picked out of that random week, and then we're going to add it to the total again. So a couple things we just want to make sure. So we're going to print out the allowance every week just to make sure that we're getting what we're expecting. And then the other thing we're going to do is we can sort of print out, we could print out the total every week. And so we should see this increase. So we got 5, 5, that. So we're starting to see it go up. So we're printing our allowance, and then we're adding it to the total. So now we're seeing a whole bunch of numbers that it's sort of a little bit harder to sort of understand, and so we could start to add some more information in here. So this could be weekly, and this we can add plan C, colon. There we go. Let's run that again, see what happens. So, awesome. So plan B gives 24, plan A 24, 10 B, 10 B, and then now we can see so weekly we got 50 cents, and the total is 50 cents. Another weekly is, the next week is 50 cents. Now we've got a total of $1. Next is 50 cents. So we can see it's working out, and we get up to, it looks like $10 on this run. Now, again, we don't need to print this out every single time. So if this is indented right now, so it runs every single time. If I remove this indent, it will only print at the very end. And then I'm just going to comment this one out because we don't need to have it all the time. And if I run it again, so we're just going to see plan A, plan B, plan C. Looking good. Now you're probably wondering, well, last time I ran it, it was $10 or something like that for plan C. This time it's 24. Why is that the case? Well, it's because this is randomly picking from this list. And so sometimes when you run it, you're going to get 24. Sometimes if you run it, let's just run it again, we got 37. So it will depend because we're randomly using this spinner here. All right. And then the last one here is we're going to use something similar. So again, we'll just remind ourselves. So we're flipping a coin each week to determine the allowance. And if it's equal to heads, get 0. If it's equal to tails, get 7.5. So I'm going to go in here. I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a header. And in this case, we're going to have a coin. And we're actually going to use the same sort of technique that we did on the spinner, except this spinner is really only got 2 parts. So one's going to be heads and tails. We're going to start off with our total for plan D at the very beginning with 0. And then again, we're going to use the technique of for that range. And then weeks. So we're going to pick out something from this coin. And essentially, if the pick is equal to tails, right? Again, it has to be equal to tails to get our 7.5. If it's heads, it doesn't really matter. We're not going to add 0 every time because that's just wasted code, wasted lines of code. So here we're going to say if the pick is equal to tails. And so again, one equal will assign the value. So it grabs something from that list, either this one or this one, doesn't really matter. And the same with the spinner, it will grab it from its equal likeliness to get any one of those, and it will assign it the value to pick. So again, we have a variable called pick. And then here this double equals is now comparison. So if the pick is equal to tails, and we got to make sure these are spelled correctly. Yep, so they're spelled the same, which is what we're expecting. We're going to take our total, and we're going to have 7.5 plus the total. All right, so we're going to keep adding those together. Again, it's nice to sort of keep track of this as we're going through, and so we're going to print out what the pick is and print out what the total is, just to keep everything together. So again, we can see here we've got pick, so we got picks as heads, 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 so 4 heads in a row, and our total is 0. And then we've got tails, so now we've got 7.5. Heads, so we're adding nothing. And then we keep adding. So good, that looks all right. You don't get that much, but if we were to, let's say, run it again, get a little bit more this time. So again, this is just for, just checking purposes. So let's go ahead and, without the indent, we can say print plan D total D. And then now if we run it, perfect. Now we got those 3. That looks great. And so the last thing that we can do here is, these are nice to sort of look at, but it's also nice to look at some plots, right? To graph some of this stuff. And so what we can do is we can tell, so there again, there's at the very beginning, we've got to tell it that we're going to use a set of graphing tools. So import matplotlib.pyp plot as that. And then we can add in the details for that. So we're going to have a graph. And so we got to tell it about it. Oh, oops, that should be a PLT. So a plot, it's going to be a graph plot. We're going to talk about the axes. So we're going to add axes to it. There we go. Right, so this is, I guess I could write in here. So this is just to set up the axes. This is to create the bar graph. Then we're going to look at our what information is going to go on the X and the Y axes of this particular bar graph. So the plans are going to go, we know we're just sort of telling it the plans that we're using. So we got plan A, right? So these are the headers that we're going to use. So plan B, plan C, and plan D. All right. That looks good. So that's one label. And then our other label is our totals. And again, so this plans and totals can be any variable that you want. We're just creating this so we can then, when we plot it, we're telling which things that we're plotting. So this one we're going to have total A, total B, total C, total D. I think I did that correctly. Great. And sorry about the background music. That's my daughter. She's just hanging out. So this is so again, we're taking our bar graph, and this is what we're going to plot. So plans, these plans versus the total. So we're going to plot these values, and then we need to show it. All right. So when we run this, we get an error. What do we get? Oh, this is total, should be totals. Perfect. There we are. So this is what we get out of it. So again, we got 24. So plan A is always going to give us 24. Plan B is always going to give us 40.95. The plan C and plan D are really, those are the ones that can become risky, in my opinion. So if we click this again, you can see it changes a little bit. Oh, oops, no, we got to click on this one and run that again. So that would be a good week to do that. But if we click on this, click on that, we get a different one. All right. So some of the interesting extensions that I thought of this one is, what if, so first of all, what would you use for the first 12 weeks? But what if we were looking at it for 16 weeks, right? Or what if we wanted to look at this longer term, that sort of thing? And then what about other risky plans that might be out there, right? What do you think might be a risky plan, but could be a good payoff in the end? All right. So again, thanks for watching. And if you have any comments or anything, please let me know. And happy coding, everyone. Bye for now.